Welcome to Inspirational Leadership. I'm your host, Kristen Harcourt, and today is going to be a solo episode. Hope everyone is doing well. Right now, we're in fall and it's one of my seasons. I love summer, but I also enjoy fall when it's that perfect time, not too cold, so I don't have the winter jacket on, and the beautiful leaves are changing color, and there's this crisp air, crisp feel as I'm taking my dog for a walk. So loving it. Hope you are all doing well. So, today's topic is going to be around managing your energy, not your time. I find this is a topic that shows up a lot for me with clients. There can be a focus on how can we optimize time and be able to get more done with less. And I get that. That is a topic in terms of how we're creating efficiencies and things like that. But today's going to be more around what you as an individual can control when it comes to your energy and managing your energy. There's a component of emotional intelligence that I talk a lot about, which is around the area when it comes to stress management. And I think that people don't realize that is a component of stress, that is a component of emotional intelligence, to be able to be really managing your stress and self regulating and being conscious of the choices you make, right? So when we think about emotional intelligence, we think about how we're showing up with others, what we're noticing in terms of our internal landscape, than when we're communicating with others. But when we also think about communicating with others and being able to deal with everything that goes on in our external world, the more that we have the tools in terms of the energy, the more we're going to respond to things quite differently. So I'm going to start when you start to think about your energy and just being conscious of what you can proactively do to make you less susceptible to stress and to make your mental health and mental well-being be much more likely to be in a healthier place so that you can respond to things in the way that you want to respond, is to start off by even looking at what are you really doing when it comes to a well-being perspective. What are you prioritizing? And are there things that you might need to be shifting, changing in order to make sure your energy levels are different because you are prioritizing things that perhaps currently you're not really committed to? So, some of those things that I would say right off the bat that you want to look at if you want to make sure that your energy is more optimal is looking at what's going on when it comes to sleep for you. And it's so interesting because back in the day, it's like when you're a kid, you don't want to take naps. You don't want to be able, you have a bedtime and you don't like having bedtime because you have all these things that you want to do and it's holding you back. And I think being able to go back and relook as adults what we're doing in terms of rituals and making sure that we are more set up to have good sleep hygiene can have a really big impact. So looking at things like, how much sleep are you getting on a daily basis? Is it anywhere from 6 to 8 hours? There's been a lot of research on this. Everything tends to support it needs to be at least 6 hours. For many people, I would say for myself, it's really 8 hours is that sweet spot. So making sure you're getting that amount of sleep every day. And what do you have to do to make sure that happens? And this is where I start to get into a lot of rituals with clients to just even look at what does their bedtime routine look like? Are you having the same time every day? Are you going to bed by 10:30 at night? Or other things creeping in before you know it, you've looked at your clock, it's 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're getting up the next day, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you're not getting enough sleep. And you can even do things to create rituals to get your body ready to be going to sleep, having a bath before bed, making sure that you're not having any phones or tech an hour before sleep, and doing things like journaling, listening to music, reading, turning the lights down dimmer, maybe having a bath, going for a walk. So having those rituals that happen when it's starting to get closer to bedtime that is telling your body it's time to get ready to go to sleep. Something can also can be helpful before you start to go to bed is just doing some notes around how did the day go, what went well, what didn't go so well, what are you grateful for, what do you want to be focused on, some of your top priorities as you go into the following day. You taking some time to do that before bed allows you to be able to download it so that when you're going to sleep, you don't have your mind going a mile a minute trying to review and process and analyze all of these things. So sleep's really important. What are you doing in terms of exercise? And exercise, I like to think of exercise in terms of movement. There's not one type of exercise that is the right kind of exercise. Whatever is going to be something that's more likely to get you moving and get you doing something that you enjoy. So for some people, it might be going for a consistent walk every day. It might be going to yoga, doing kickboxing, going to fitness classes, going to the gym and doing weights. It might be doing hobbies and things that you like doing baseball or soccer or hockey, dance, whatever that looks like for your that works again for you for your schedule and what's happening in your world. But something where you're getting consistent movement is really important. Paying attention to your nutrition, what's going into your body. A lot of times when things are very busy, I see a lot of people in corporate are not even having lunch, never mind when they are eating, they're running from meeting to meeting. What are you doing to really nourish your body? What is giving you fuel? So are you getting enough fruits and vegetables? Are you having protein, or are you just grabbing whatever processed food is right there in front of you, probably high in sugar, not really nourishing your body and not going to give you the fuel you need? Then we can start to look at what's going on in terms of what are some of the soul filling things that are happening in your world that energize you. And when I start to think of soul filling, this could be time with family and friends, family that you enjoy spending time with. It energizes you, not the ones who are draining. The ones who are draining are not going to help to contribute to your energy. That's a whole other conversation around perhaps holding boundaries to have more energy. But the family that does really energize you, are you spending time with them? Are you making time for your friends? And are you making time for things that you enjoy, hobbies? And this doesn't have to be a lot of time. These could be hobbies, that things that you enjoy, such as reading or just dancing around your house for a little bit, or going and doing some painting, doing some classes, like whatever it is that you know energizes you. And this isn't about adding something else to your to-do list. So don't overthink this. This could be a small thing like playing out in your garden. This could be doing some woodworking in your garage, but just something that you know is energizing, fulfilling for you, that you're intentionally, consistently creating space for that. I find all of these things can be very helpful in boosting that energy. Some of the other energy givers I think are important that we don't always think about is sunlight. So, are you getting exposure to sunlight? Are you making sure that you are getting access to a window somewhere if you're not going to be outside in throughout the day? Uh, can you take 10 minutes during your day at lunchtime, first thing in the morning, towards the end of the afternoon, where you might not have as much energy anyway? So, you're not going to be as productive. You don't want to be doing the things that are going to require as much mental energy as it gets to the end of the day. So, are you getting sunlight? And I mean, there's been a lot of research around this. We know about SAD. And so, there are individuals that really struggle in the winter or times of the year or climates, parts of the world where they're not getting sun frequently, and you can do things like sun lamps. I know for us, in my ideal world, I would love to be going away somewhere warm during the winter in January, February, to just get through that hump so that I'm getting a lot of that sunlight. But again, not everybody might have access to be able to be going on a vacation, but can you get access to the sunlight? Go for walks. And especially, I find going for walks can be really good when you're noticing you're finding it hard to focus. You just don't have the energy to work on whatever task that is. Maybe you just had a difficult conversation with somebody at work or in your personal life. Maybe you're about to have a more difficult conversation, and just being able to get outside, get that movement, have access to the sun, have access to nature can be really good for energizing and grounding you. So I think that's something that we don't always think about in terms of those energy givers. Making sure you're staying hydrated, so drinking water regularly throughout the day. A lot of times people even notice those times where they might be overeating. It wasn't actually that they were hungry. Their stomach is just letting them know that they're thirsty, they're dehydrated. So making sure that you have a lot of water throughout the day. And then other energy givers are self-care. And self-care, I find right now, self-care is getting this thing like, go for a massage and everything will be okay. I think it's more about you asking yourself, what are those consistent practices that you are doing on the daily to take care of you? And what does it feel like for you to feel like your needs are being honored? And I don't think there is a one size fits all, but just taking the time to ask yourself, what are those things that really feel nourishing and really make you feel like you're taking care of yourself, which again are going to add to more energy. And it's not something where I want you to be waiting until your vacation and this is the time where I'm going to get my energy back. It really has to be something in a micro, in a small way that you're doing on a daily basis. That might look like, having a nap on a Saturday or Sunday. And I know some people are going to tell me my weekends are so busy, I don't have time to do a nap. Or I bet you if I were to look at your schedule and we were to do an audit of what's happening 24/7, there would definitely be time for naps if you choose. It's just not being prioritized. And there's a big, huge, fat permission slip that needs to be given there because we don't give ourselves permission to be able to just nourish and give ourselves rest. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in terms of some of the things that we need to be cognizant of around energy. But so I would just say, like, what are you doing to make sure that self-care is being prioritized? Are you living in the moments? Are you in the present moment? Are you here? Because when you're present, I do a lot of talks on mindfulness and being present and how it can have such a huge impact on how things go on your daily basis if you just stay here present. Because a lot of the time, what's happening, and there's research to show this, 46.9% of the time, you're not thinking about what's happening in this moment. You're thinking about something else. You're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future. You're reliving a situation that happened in the past, you're ruminating, or you're thinking about the future, perhaps having anxiety about a future thing that might happen later that day, later that week. Sometimes if you start to really pay attention to what's going on in your mind, you're actually having anxiety around a whole narrative and story you created around something that might happen 5 to 10 years from now. Your kids are currently, I'm thinking my kids are 11 and 14. So you're thinking about when they're in university, 22 years old, and you're already out in the future. So noticing kindly, non-judgmentally, gently that you are in the past or in the future and bringing yourself to the present moment can really have a huge impact on creating energy for you, because you can imagine how draining it is if your mind is constantly somewhere else and you're not present. That takes a lot out of you. So I think that's a huge energy giver. Also being conscious of your self-talk. How are you speaking to yourself? Is it kind? Is it empowering? Is it compassionate? Are you seeing your strengths? Are you talking to yourself about learning opportunities as opposed to having a really critical voice who is beating yourself up, who is looking at all the things that you're not and how you're not enough? That takes a lot of energy away. And I think it's something that's more relevant than people realize until they start to really pay attention to how much that's happening on a daily basis. So the other things I want you to be aware of in terms of energy takers is too much screen time. I cannot tell you how big of the screen time one is. I just did a presentation recently on mindfulness with an organization, and I loved it. So many different leaders, and we were all talking about how addictive and how phones are actually designed to be addictive. Behavioral psychologists sit around rooms to think about ways they can keep you on the apps and on social media longer, because of course there's advertising dollars and ways that people are learning about you to be able to market to you. But it is designed to be very addictive. So I just want to acknowledge that, don't be hard on yourself that you are pulled into this phone that has so much power. It's designed to do that. And so this is why you have to make sure that you create some barriers for yourself or create some really strong commitments so that you're not being controlled by social media, because it is very draining, right? When you've been on technology all day at work, what are you doing when you leave the workplace and in your evenings? I know for me what I do, and it's so easy now to be able to set your phone in different modes. So I put my phone in me time. And in me time, I have all of my apps, all of my emails turned off. The only thing that can get through are texts. And for me, I'm okay with texts coming through because those are usually important texts coming from my family. Those are the only people are really getting in touch with me in that way. And of course, friends, but I'm not getting into work mode when texts are happening. If you notice that texts do come from work, then I'd say you might want to further even make sure that you're creating some barriers so those didn't get through. But what are you doing to be able to have some healthy boundaries outside of work hours, healthy boundaries with your tech? I also find it's really, really helpful. Once it's an hour before bed, my phone goes downstairs, it gets plugged in. It's not where I'm sleeping. When I need to use it for alarm, that's the only time it comes back in. I would say if you're always using it for alarm, you can go back old school and use your radio and have music coming on. It just has such an impact when you have technology in your room when you're sleeping. So I really encourage you to have your devices in a different place so it's not in your room and you're not looking at an hour before bed. And can you also perhaps take a break from it on the weekends? I try to give myself every weekend at least one day of the weekend completely shut off from tech, social media, emails, nothing that's bringing me back into work. Right? Because if you want to be able to come back and be energized at work, you need to make sure once you leave work, you are fully leaving work and giving yourself space to now have some of that rest, have some of that recovery. So I think those are really important. We don't realize how much that is taking energy out of us. Overworking is really a huge epidemic. You know, we live in a culture that really glorifies busyness. And so it can be a badge of honor. And so there's also, it's interesting because our culture really even encourages it. So it's not hard for you to feel like you're getting recognition and validation from others around, wow, like it's amazing how you're able to achieve all these things and your accomplishments and all of these things that you've done. But at what cost? That's the question. At what cost? Cost to, you know, things that matter to you outside of work, relationships that matter to you outside of work, things that you will never be able to go back to in terms of events, maybe that you couldn't go to, time with family and friends. Those all have a cost, and we don't always see the cost in the moment. So really making sure that you're conscious about where you're spending your time and not getting into the overworking. We forget about as well as the sitting all day. I did mention earlier around getting out and getting that movement in, but even like every hour, getting up a little bit, doing some stretches, stepping away from your desk. We're not really designed to be getting into sprints and being at our desk and working on things in a focused way for more than 90 minutes. Another thing I think can be super helpful is just checking in with yourself throughout your day and just see, where is my energy at? If I'm going to do a quick energy audit with myself between 1 and 10, what's my energy at right now? Am I at a 10 first thing in the morning? I have tons of energy. Or am I at a 3? Okay. If I'm at a 3 right now, what can I do to shift out of a 3? Maybe I need to get out and get some walk, get some movement in for the next 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe I need to hydrate, have some water. Maybe I need to switch the task that I'm doing and do something else where I can feel like I'm in the right mental energy to be able to focus on it. Just stepping away from my desk for a little bit and going back there later. But really checking with yourself and then just noticing when it does end up being that lower score, well, what's happening right now in this moment that might be contributing to that? Well, you might say the whole day has felt like a 4 or 5. Okay, what's leading to this 4 or 5 out of 10 for my energy level? Oh, when I look at yesterday, I slept for about 3 or 4 hours. Haven't done a lot of exercise this week. I'm doing a lot of travel. And again, this isn't about you making yourself wrong or making yourself feel bad. It's just data that you can do something with this data. Okay, now I can really see the correlation. When I'm not getting enough sleep, when I'm not getting enough exercise, when I'm having too many dinners out, having too much wine, whatever it is, I just notice my energy level's not going to be the same. And so, okay, you made that decision, you made that choice. Might you make a different choice the next day? Might you say, you know what, I'm going to be really conscious about what I have for my dinner? Or I notice that, you know, I have a couple of things, I'm traveling. I might say no to this commitment because I just really need to get some more sleep. So really checking in with yourself and giving yourself some honest feedback around what's contributing to your energy level and what you can do to change. Because this is very empowering, right? You only have 24 hours in a day. And I don't want you to be working and always focus on work for, because I know a lot of people are going to be using and optimizing these things for productivity and for work. Well, you only have a certain number of hours in the day. And so this isn't just about you constantly working. This is about you checking in with yourself and asking, what will put me in the right place for when I am working in that contained amount of time to be able to be the most effective. And then I can unplug and be more effective in other areas of my life that really matter to me. So that I think is really important. I talk to a lot of leaders around the importance of creating white space in your calendar. I know a lot of you are in companies where it's back-to-back meetings, and where you do have control. I would say take back control. If there's an opportunity for you to say, you know what, it doesn't make sense for me to be in this meeting, then don't go to that meeting. If you are constantly in meetings that are an hour, that could be 30 minutes, or are you in 30-minute meetings that could be actually more like 20 minutes, so that you're not in back-to-back and you've got that 10 minutes in between that you can have a little refresh before you're going to meeting, and really taking your calendar back. Because if you can create that white space where you have those moments where, I know every time I'm talking to a leader, they're saying, I don't have time to do my strategic work. And the strategic work is the work that you need that 60 to 90 minutes uninterrupted to be really, really focused on what you're doing. And you putting that in your calendar, and then you're not available, right? You're not paying attention to any notifications. Your attention is single task. This is not multitasking. Your single task on that work. It's a really, really amazing what happens when you're in that space. Your creativity, your productivity actually ends up sometimes being 10 times as productive as you'd be if you're trying to be multitasking. I think actually higher than that with some of the research that I've seen, because you are in that deep work, you're in that flow, and you're able to create from a very different place. There's a great book from Cal Newport called Deep Work that goes into this some more. And of course, he has all the research and the science to go behind that. So, also being conscious of those times that you might be scrolling on social media. Is there something else that you could be doing in that time? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Um, I think something that we don't always think about is, what are you doing to also regulate yourself in your day to day, so that when situations are happening, which they are going to happen, situations, circumstances, external things that are out of your control, what are you doing in terms of how you're responding to them? When you first of all have done some of the things that I've talked about in terms of making sure you have more energy, I think you'll notice that the same things don't impact you in the same way, because it kind of like, okay, no big deal. Whereas if you're sleep deprived, or you haven't had enough water and your head is cloudy and you have a headache, that same thing will impact you in a different way. So, really paying attention as well in terms of your internal energy. What you can control is how you respond to the situations around you. Are you resisting reality? Are you wanting things to be different than they are? Or are you just acknowledging, okay, this is how it is in this moment, and I'm not going to try to resist it. I'm not going to try to make it something it isn't, because you can't. As much as we like to control things, this is what's happening in this moment. And the more you can regulate your nervous system by, taking deep breaths, by slowing down, by noticing whatever works well for you in terms of self-soothing. I might do another podcast episode in the future on that in terms of regulating your nervous system, because I think that's huge. But for each of us, it looks a little bit different. Some people, their biological response when they're feeling triggered or overwhelmed might be flight. Others might be freeze. Others might be fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So some people even get into really like people pleasing mode, and saying what they think somebody needs to hear because their nervous system has been activated. But just really noticing how you are taking care of yourself, and through taking care of yourself, being able to respond better to others, that has a huge impact on our energy. Because those times that you are not feeling empowered, going into victim mode, blaming others, telling everybody else needs to change, that it's not you, that they all need to fix themselves. That takes lots and lots and lots of your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual energy. So, really, really being cognizant of that. And I just really want you to honor your body. Pay attention. Your body is so good at getting your attention and letting you know if you listen, it will tell you what it needs. And sometimes it's going to say it needs rest, it needs restoration, it needs some time for recharging. I see a lot of corporate where we're constantly in sprints and there's no recovery. Your body's not designed for that. It's not sustainable. You can't be in this constant sprint that never ends. Sprint, recovery, sprint, recovery. So giving your um, really giving your full attention to your body and paying attention and listening to what it needs. And when it's telling you at the end of the day, I'm at a 2, not trying to continue to plow through and push through, but really acknowledge, okay, I need to do some taking care of myself tonight. I'm going to rest, I'm going to recharge, I'm going to recalibrate, I'm going to unplug. And I'm going to also make sure that this is something I do consistently and not just wait until my body gets its attention. It's at a 1 or a 2. Because if we keep on doing that consistently, that's where burnout happens. Your body's not designed for that. Your body's not a machine. Your body really, really needs to be cared for. And what a beautiful, beautiful gift to yourself to make sure that you're taking care of you in order to be there to take care of others and do the stuff that you've identified as being important in your worlds. But you have to make sure. I'm sure you've heard the put your own oxygen mask on first. You know this, you've heard it, but I'm going to tell you again, right? So instead of continuously focusing on what can you do to manage your time better, what can you do to manage your energy better? Because let's remind, this is a reminder for you. You have one life. You want to be living that life in a way that feels aligned with you and your values. Because this isn't a dress rehearsal. You don't get a second chance. And so, this is your invitation to really pause, take a step back, and ask yourself, what are those things that are the energy drainers for you in your world, personally and professionally? And how are you going to give yourself less exposure to the energy drainers and more exposure to the energy givers? Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with others. Thanks so much for your reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you like to develop more confident and emotionally intelligent leaders in your organization, let's connect. I'd love to share more about my one-on-one coaching, transformational keynotes, and ongoing leadership training. From my heart to yours, I am sending tons of love. Bye-bye.